In all of my challenge runs, there is one enemy group that is a thorn in my side no matter what character or element I'm using, the Abyss Mages. But it got me thinking, what if we had our own version of an Abyss Mage? It obviously can't be related to the Abyss, it has to be something morally good. And then it hit me. What's the morally good opposite of an Abyss Mage? Yep, an Angel Mage. Enter Nicole, an Angel, a Hexenzirkel Mage, and a Pyro Shielder who occasionally has an on-field summon that can deal damage. Best of all, despite having given up her voice, she has defied all odds to remain a pro yapper. As a self-proclaimed hater of Abyss Mages and professional yapper, there was simply no better character to embark on a solo run with.
Oh, should I introduce myself again? Looks like no interference from Alice's self-introduction magic this time. So I suppose I'll just go ahead. I'm Nicole. As you can see, I'm... again? Guess I spoke too soon.
The rules for this challenge are the same as always. I can only use Nicole, but I can use other characters if necessary to move forward the Archon quest. All catalysts are allowed, but let's be real, we know there's only one catalyst I'll be using this challenge. Additionally, I cannot play in co-op. Otherwise, anything goes. Now let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using Nicole. For the first time in a while in these solo challenges, I didn't need Amber's help once. Starting off strong in her domain, we can just clear it the normal way. However, Kaya's domain also provides me with the first example of a reoccurring problem for this challenge, namely pyro-immune enemies. In my last solo run, I made a point to not use the Eye of Perception unless I absolutely had to. However, that is not repeating in this video, because I would be switching out the weapons so often that it would just waste unnecessary time. Besides, Eye of Perception is ironically one of Nicole's alternative weapons, so she's pretty much the most valid case of Eye of Perception impact. Would you look at that? The one who rejected Hexenzirkel, now getting help from a member.
Oh, how the tables have turned.
Thanks to Nicole being a tall female model, she doesn't struggle as much with Lisa's domain skip, and we're able to complete Act 1. Twice? Is that really necessary? So typically in these videos, I share the pros and cons of a specific character after Act 1 while grinding to AR 10. However, moving forward, I'll be doing the pros and cons after Act 2, for one simple reason. The time it takes to get to AR 10 is way too short to actually get any footage of the pros and cons. If not for a specific detour that we have to deal with in Act 3, I might have actually completed Mondstadt in under 3 hours. This entire half of the challenge was actually filmed within the first 4 days of Nicole's release, and in terms of just playtime, it's now possible to make it up to AR 27 in around 24 hours. You might just have to sacrifice some sanity for that though. Thanks to the book missions and one singular leyline fight, we reach AR 10, so now it's time to return to the city and start Act 2. I think I'm most interested to know how Nicole looks on lower quality graphic settings or on mobile devices. For me, she glows. Oh, hey, I actually need him for my Hexarai only account. I think one of the most interesting parts with Nicole is how far her attacks can hit. They don't just project forward like some Catalyst characters, but the targeting is really good. Except maybe when I'm trying to hit a non-enemy target, but we'll get more into that later in the video. I don't know the technical terms at all, but at the end of the day, it's beneficial against flying characters like this, so maybe I'll even be able to beat Amber's domain without help. Unfortunately, I fear I got too confident and flew too close to the sun with the church sneaking because I got caught. How humbling. I think I'm going to start keeping track of all the mandatory enemies that are pyro immune, just to show how insane attempting this without the eye perception would have been. It's gotten to the point that on my list of reroll accounts, I have it written down which accounts have the eye perception. This account, obviously, was one of them. I won't classify the pyro agent as one of the pyro immune enemies though, because well, he's not. In the same way that Signora isn't pyro-immune either. It's just a high resistance. Annoying, but possible even without the eye perception. It's so impressive to me how dedicated Nicole is to always serving. She never misses, truly. Now, you might be thinking, well, Ren, I thought you weren't going to keep doing two-part solo runs. And yes, I technically did say that, but I realized with newer characters like Nicole or Columbina, I felt obligated to speedrun it, and it may come as a shock, but speedrunning the entire Archon quest from Mondstadt to Natlan is a very easy way to get burnt out. So I've been working steadily on my original plan for these challenges, and I have finally reached the goal I was striving for several months ago, being able to rotate part 1s and part 2s. With this, I can do part 1s of new characters, the following upload can be a part 2 of a different character, and both can be rotated with Archons only and Hexarai only. For older characters like Albedo and the Inazuma Chronicled Wish crew, they're less reliant on the initial algorithm hype like new characters, and I plan to just slowly chip away at their challenges to do do a full single challenge video for them. I've also started getting to a point where I can fully edit and produce videos under an hour in like 4 or 5 days, sometimes less. So all in all, I'm getting into a rhythm that I can perhaps upload weekly. I might do what some animes or mangas do, where they have 3 weeks of weekly releases and then a week off, or I may just do what I've been doing, where I upload as soon as I finish a video, even if that means a bit of weird inconsistency. Gotta find a way to please the algorithm, I suppose. One thing's for sure though, you can always count on me to make a comparison to Diluc's model. On one hand, it's insane how far Genshin has come since the game was released. On the other hand, it's a very dramatic difference. With Act 2 complete, we need to grind up to AR 18 for Act 3, so now is the perfect time to go over the pros and cons of Nicole, both in general and from a solo challenge perspective. Starting with the pros, there are a lot. I don't say this lightly, but Nicole might be one of the most important characters to own since Farina. She's basically a 5-star Bennett with a shield instead of healing. Similar to Bennett, Nicole's kit is entirely scaling on attack. This is up there alongside HP scaling characters with how insanely easy they are to build. She of course has her best artifact set, but in a solo run like this, I can basically just throw any attack percentage artifacts on her, and she's all set. On that topic, like I mentioned earlier, the Eye of Perception is ironically one of her best alternate weapons, even in a normal account setting. In past Catalyst solo runs where characters scale on HP, they lose some of that potential by needing to use the Eye of Perception. Plus, the Eye of Perception began to feel like a crutch to these challenges, so I tried to minimize how much I used it. For Nicole though, it's both far more necessary due to the sheer number of pyro immune enemies, but it also is one of the best non-5-star weapons to use for a DPS build. Moving on, I've seen a lot of discussion in regards to Nicole needing to be built with both attack and energy recharge in mind, at least for Hexerai teams. Solo runs tend to be where the lack of a battery teammate is most noticed, and there are definitely challenges where I've struggled with energy recharge. However, Nicole is not one of those challenges. There was not a single point in this challenge that I felt like I was struggling with energy recharge. When triggering her skill, if it hits an enemy, it generates energy particles. And obviously with a solo run, of course I want to hit enemies when using her skill. Speaking of her skill, well, her shield, oh man, I don't know if it's just because the world level is low during this half, and as such damage dealt by enemies is low, but Nicole barely took any damage throughout the course of this entire first part. Her shield was nearly constantly up, and one of the reasons for that is because the skill cooldown is significantly shorter than the duration of the shield. Now, all of these pros have been about why she's great in solo runs, but what about in a team setting? Nicole, like I said, is probably one of the most vital support characters to own since Farina, especially for those running Hexerai teams. Her shield and burst boosts teammates' attack based on her own attack, and her burst will summon projections that deal additional damage. She can turn basically any character into a DPS. Well, maybe not Kokomi, but I haven't tested that yet. Also, just in personal opinions, she is by far one of the most visually stunning character models that we've ever gotten. She is truly the representation of how far Genshin has come with character models since the start of the game. Oh, and did I mention the fact that she literally emotes? Can more characters do this with their stickers? Please? Now it's obvious that I really like Nicole, but no character is perfect, and she is no exception. So, what are her cons? Number 1, while Pyro is one of the most useful elements to have in solo runs, as I've mentioned a few times already, there are so many Pyro immune enemies that are mandatory to face throughout the course of the Archon quest. And when I say mandatory, I mean you either have to beat them to continue the Archon quest, or, like in the first run of daily commissions, it's not relevant to the Archon quest per se, but the first run of dailies is the same every time, and I'm fairly certain you have to do them to unlock full daily missions that will rotate. Now, every character has a utility passive, so what's Nicole's? Well, it's not relevant for this challenge at all, but for the sake of pros and cons, I'm moving on to my main account to show it. Her utility passive allows her charged attack while not in battle to summon a Seelie that will bring you to the nearest treasure chest. That sounds super useful, so why is it not relevant? It requires the treasure compass to be unlocked for the area. So, needless to say, we will not be seeing that in this challenge at all. In these solo runs, the bosses are incredibly hit or miss. Sometimes, like with Mualani, the boss is incredibly easy to beat. Other times, like with Kokomi, the boss cannot be beaten with only the solo character. More often than not though, the boss falls somewhere in the middle. Not necessarily immune, but also not a walk in the park. Nicole's boss, however, falls closer to the easy end of that spectrum. It's straightforward to beat, and it doesn't have a resistance to pyro. So why is it in the cons? It's in the furthest possible corner of the map. genuinely why. Moving on, in terms of team composition, Nicole is best suited for being on a Hexerai team, meaning that to really see the most potential, you have to have at least one other teammate that is also Hexerai. This, to an extent, heavily restricts her team comps, but in my opinion, she's still a really good support even without Hexerai, so it's not an absolute deal breaker. Finally, Nicole is primarily an off-field support, so in solo runs, she doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but with her shield, the longer a fight takes, the more she benefits. Who knows, maybe she'll even be able to outlast the Raiden Shogun and the Vision Hunt Decree. After 2 days of daily commissions and a whole lot of book missions, we finally hit AR 18, so let's return to Dawn Winery to start Act 3. Why are you just hiding back here? Aren't you all supposed to be grouped together? Isn't that how this works? At some point during Act 2, it dawned on me that I was going to have an uphill battle for Act 3, so much so that I opted to not try to finish Mondstadt in the night immediately following her release, despite the fact it wasn't necessarily a huge challenge to do so. However, completing Act 3 meant facing my biggest obstacle in this entire challenge. Why? Because it's timed. In every installment of Eye of Perception Impact, the longer the fight goes on, the more beneficial it is to us, especially in the case of Nicole where her shield is omnipresent. The sheer amount of Pyro Abyss mages, and the one Pyro Abyss Lector in Atlan, doesn't entirely concern me that much. However, this fight needs us to beat the Pyro Abyss mage and friends in 2 minutes or less. And when Eye of Perception's hits only occur once every 12 seconds, I need to be able to break the shield in under 10 of the hits. And with our attack being so low in the early game, well, that seems unlikely to work out. I decided to give it 2 tries to see if it's possible before looking for alternate options. Sure, I could just use attack buffing foods, but that just feels a bit like a cop-out. In other solo runs, I have used it before for particularly tough fights, and I don't have any issues with using healing food in battle. After all, it's there, what's the big deal? But this early in the game, there must be other solutions. The most obvious solution, for some reason, was to just grind to AR 25, ascend Nicole and the Eye of Perception, and not ascend the world level. After all, I'll need to reach AR 25 at some point anyways for this challenge, so it just takes that grinding and moves it to an earlier time frame in the video. Before I got too deep into grinding though, I realized her boss materials are in Nodcry, and the teleport waypoints in Nodcry don't unlock until after Act 3. I know I can walk to Natlan, after all I did it with Kanich, and was rewarded with my account being yoinked by the Hoyo gods, but can I go from Natlan to Nodcry? I did what made sense. I googled it and was reminded about the Saurians. I can use these Saurians and swim there. That is the perfect solution. So I started the walk. Oh no, I forgot they can only be indwelled within Natlan. Maybe if I keep swimming, my abysmal stamina will get me far enough to get teleported. Or not. Now, could I have tried again with a Kukasaur? Perhaps. But I also realize now I have no idea if it's even possible to get from the Experimental Design Bureau to Voidsea Outlook. So I decided to compromise. In exchange for using attack boosting food for Act 3, I can't use healing food in battle. I'd say this is for the duration of this challenge, but it's hard to say if I'll remember this self-imposed rule once we get to part 2. Thankfully, our attack boost food was enough, and we managed to complete the fight, albeit barely. The other 2 seals are a walk in the park in comparison, so now it's time to go fight Dvalin. Oh, nice, our world level increases right before the boss fight. Fantastic. So recently, I got back into Umumusame, because my girl Kuren-chan got a new wedding version, and Haru Urara had a wedding support card. It's like this banner set was tailor-made to pull me back into the game. The first thing I found out was instead of a returner banner or returner missions, I got to claim pretty much everything sent in the mail since I stopped playing. I ended up with like 24,000 carrots, which is the equivalent to Primo Gems. Ironically though, it took me nearly all of them to get Wedding Kuren. I got 3 copies of Wedding Fine Motion, another copy of Standard Kuren, and Halloween Rice Shower. And then I got 2 copies of Wedding Kuren back to back. I also ended up getting the Haru Urara wedding support card in my last pull, so that was a huge win. But regardless, there's more career options now, so I'll definitely be playing more of it again. I I rotate through a concerning variety of phone games, but Uma Musume is probably the only gacha of the mobile games I play. Most of them are like merge games that you can turn your brain off for. I'd like to say it prevents me from doom scrolling on TikTok, but is that really any better? With Dvalin defeated on the second rotation, we return to Mondstadt, struggle to destroy the barricades because Nicole overshoots them, and complete Act 3, marking the end of the Mondstadt Archon quest. Now, technically speaking, Hexenzirkel is only obligated to act in protecting Mondstadt from disaster, but a disaster to other nations can theoretically impact Mondstadt, and with the Grandmaster, and most of the knights, in Notcry, who else can keep the order of the world in check but Hexenzirkel? So let's work towards AR23 to start the Liyue Archon quest. Upon completing Act 3, a bunch of waypoints automatically unlock throughout Teyvat. One of these waypoints is near Void Sea Outlook, which is still a hike from Nicole's boss. Luckily though, I can collect the Pine Amber along the way, so it's not a complete waste of time, unlike my earlier walk. Like I mentioned earlier, her boss isn't really a huge obstacle, it's just a matter of chipping away at it slowly.
Eventually.
Okay, heavy emphasis on slowly, but we were rewarded for our patience with 2 drops, so now we can return to our old reliable for AR grinding, the ley lines. I didn't want to use all of my resin just to get to AR23 though, especially because the grind to AR28 is painfully slow if you run out of resin too early, so I instead opted to complete more book missions, which got me all the way to AR23. Starting Liyue Act 1, I nearly got caught again, so maybe I need to stop being so confident here. Now, as you all saw, I used the Adeptus Temptation for Nicole in Mondstadt Act 3, so obviously I did unlock the teleport waypoints for the areas of the Adepti, which at least makes my life easier at this moment. Obviously, I can probably skip this domain, but similar to trying to skip Kaya's domain on Hexerai only, it was weirdly a struggle, so I just ran the domain as usual. At least I get some extra chests. Also, I don't know why on that video the map showed which Amber the brother was inside, but it didn't work this time, which was unfortunate. Nicole is also not in the group of catalysts who can break rocks, so Beto had to help us out here. Wait, why can't I make the salad? I don't have apples? You think Lona let me borrow his apple? I have now learned that I have no idea where apple trees are in game. I don't know if I'll ever need to have that memorized, but obviously it could have helped now. I certainly found plenty of Sunsetia trees though. Oh, you have an apple. Mind if I borrow that? Great, so Xiao's salad is done, so now let's go beat up the Ruin Hunter. You know, the tragic part of this is anytime I have a catalyst and would be able to fight this enemy relatively easily while it's in the sky, it never does that move. But as soon as I have a character with a sword or claymore, it exclusively parks itself in the sky. Yes, I'm still bitter about Gaming. With Act 1 complete, I decided to finally start working on Amber's story quest. Also, I didn't mention this in the pros and cons because, well, it's mostly just a cute mechanic, but when you plunge with Nicole, instead of just being a ball of pyro, she appears like a Seelie. It's so cute. I love it. Truly the little things. While working on Amber's quest, it also forces me to start Zhongling's story quest. Luckily, I only have to send Zhongling to apologize to Draft before it lets me continue, but I'll have to see her again for Razor's story quest. Maybe one day, focused experience mode will be functional for past quests, but I'm not holding my breath. Unfortunately, while Nicole is able to reach almost everything in Amber's domain, including the 2 power sources and the outer hilly churls, she still can't reach the hilly churl on the tallest platform. Maybe one day we can be free from needing Amber's help. With Amber's story quest finished, we move into Wolvendom to start Razor's quest. This also means that we have to continue Zhongling's story quest a bit further, but after this point we just end up leaving her over on the Liyue side of Dawn Winery, so now we can focus on beating Lupus Boreas. If it hasn't been obvious yet, one of the pros that I find with doing these challenges in 2 parts is I'm actually able to show most, if not all, of the Archon quest fights in the video instead of cutting most of it out. Unfortunately, with Columbina, I realized I had to cut a ton of stuff for the video to be a reasonable length, but with 2-part challenges, I can keep in more combat and overall show more of the challenge. Obviously, I'm still cutting over 40 hours of footage from Mondstadt through Natlan down to like 2 hours or less, but that's better than under an hour. That said, I don't entirely foresee this video being more than like the half hour, maybe 45 minutes depending on how long I decide to yap during the boss fights, but it was actually less than 20 hours of footage for this entire first part. I've definitely begun to streamline these challenge runs, though I also feel like I've started running on autopilot when I record them, so pros and cons, I guess. With Razor's story quest complete, we return to the weapon materials domain, and since it's within the first week of a character banner, we're able to farm the materials needed for the Eye of Perception. Eventually, we get close enough to just go collect an oculi, which brings us to AR25. After we ascend Nicole in the Eye of Perception, it's time to start Act 2. Most excitingly, we can complete the rock cooking task without any help. This doesn't happen very often, so it has to be appreciated when it does. Despite being able to show more of the challenge overall in 2-part videos, I still will not be showing all the fetching quests during Act 2. I still hate them. However, Act 2 does at least provide provide temporary relief from any pyro enemies. Madame Ping's teapot is exclusively cryo, electro, and hydro slimes, and the one geo slime that just throws itself off the ledge when you break its shell, and the treasure hoarders at the ballista are never much of an issue. Well, as long as we keep them from falling off the platform. It's also almost always raining when I do this quest for some reason, so that definitely makes my life easier, unless I'm using a hydro character, or if I get hit by the cryo treasure hoarder. After dinner with Zhongli, we finish Act 2, so now it's time to return to Mondstadt to do Diluc's story quest. I always start his quest in these challenges because it's necessary to prevent the Dainsleif quest from being interrupted, but whether or not I do the quest in its entirety depends on if I have a character that can deal with cryo and hydro abyss mages. Usually, as long as it's not a catalyst, I can do the quest, since I can just buy the mist flowers from Boo Boo's pharmacy and brute force the abyss mages, but in the last 5 solo runs I've recorded, 3 have been hydro characters, so Diluc's quest has been somewhat neglected. So as we all know, it's been a recent chronicle of trying to get C6 R5 Lowen on my main account, and one of the most important aspects for a god tier level Lowen team is his top teammates. So I had to get Nicole C0 R1. I had nearly 400 wishes built up, and I wanted to just get Nicole and her weapon and save the rest of the pulls for Lowen. How'd it go? Well, let's start with Nicole. After 70 pity, I got Mona, and then went another 75 wishes for Nicole. Great. Well, the weapon banner can't be much worse, right? I went to 65 pity, and I got my 7th copy of Skyward Pride, and then went to another 60-ish pity before I got her weapon. It was pretty much as awful as it could have been. With under 200 wishes left, I realized I had an uphill battle with my wallet in order to secure Lowen. But in true gambler nature, I decided to just do a 10 pull to build pity. I got Nicole C1. To be fair though, I'm not even mad, her cons are cracked. I would be absolutely willing to C6 Nicole if I wasn't trying to C6 Lowen on the same patch. And now I have to worry about Sandrone because she's beautiful, and I need her. And yes, I will do Sandrone only. I don't know if I'll rush it out like this one, but we'll see. My highest priority after this video is Lowen only. Oh, and speaking of Lowen, make sure you stay till the end to see my new end screen. With Diluc's story quest complete, it's finally time to take on the Ascension domain. Wow, I am realizing this is an insanely yap-heavy video. Truly on brand for a Nicole challenge. If you're someone who is new to my channel and doesn't enjoy the yapping, you're probably in the wrong place. So I mentioned that I'm going to be rotating part 1s like this video with part 2s. So, who's next? Right now, it's either Mualani, Farina, or Skirk, since all 3 of those are fully recorded. But it'll likely end up being Mualani since her challenge came out first of those 3. Honestly, this video overall is a bit of a test for me to see how much time it takes for me to script, record, and edit these solo runs. With more casually recorded challenges like Hexerai only and Archons only, I'm able to zoom through those. But these solo runs tend to have more raw footage to sort through, and are usually a bit longer than the long series. But if I can get this video finished within the time frame I set as a goal, I think weekly uploads might still be realistic, with occasional 1-week gaps for breaks. I really want to hit 50,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I think it's more than possible as long as I keep consistent with my uploads. More importantly, I need to start finding more things to talk about for Yap segments. With the Ascension domain cleared, I spent a while burning through resin in her talent domain before doing some exploration, which got me to AR27. Now, I feel it's incredibly important to note here that everything from Act 3 of Mondstadt to this was recorded in a single day. The day after she released. Specifically. Yep, you heard that right. I got up to AR27 in under 24 hours. So by this point, I decided it was good enough and called it a day. It's a new day, so we have new daily commissions, including the glory one. While I did have to go through Sumeru in my attempt to walk to Notcry, I did not go to southern Sumeru, so I had to make a detour so I could find the shop that sells dandelion seeds. The good news though is with this, I'll have some left over for Flora's world quest, if I actually remember to help her at any point. The other 3 quests were straightforward: beat an Eye of the Storm, destroy some towers, and light a bunch of shields on fire. But thanks to the daily commissions, we're 1 step closer to AR28. You wanna know something? This was the moment I realized this device is how people have healing foods easily accessible. I always see videos with people having usually sweet madames on the corner of their screen, and I could never figure out how they did it. Mind you, I have played this game since 1.3. Go ahead, point and laugh, you have my permission. Putting that aside, I did actually remember to help Flora with her world quest, which helped me hit AR28. Now, Nicole may not be an animal character, but as an angel, she can obviously use her burst to utilize her wings and fly right over. Obviously. Two queens coming together to maximize their joint slay. Truly iconic. This fight is almost always a hassle, but luckily with Nicole, it was a piece of cake. I know that the Dainsleif quest is going to force me to fight way too many Pyro Abyss mages, but I'll happily enjoy easy fights while I still can. Finally, it's time to go fight Child. Will Nicole potentially beat Mulaney's record on how fast she beat Child? No, absolutely not. But she definitely gave him a beating. So in my attempt to figure out things to yap about, I consulted my two best friends, Midia and Violet. Midia ignored me, but Violet gave me a suggestion. This. Unfortunately for Violet, she has to get in line because Midia has been trying to get me to watch certain anime or TV shows, mostly Banana Fish, for literal years. Why haven't I watched it? Honestly, there's no real reason. I don't know if anyone else has this, but I'm sure plenty of people do because I've never had an original experience. I can't get into a new media unless I'm in a certain mood, I guess. Even if I know would be something I'd probably really enjoy, I just struggle to get interested. Then one day, the switch flips, and I usually end up binging the media in question. One of the most recent examples I can think of on the top of my head is Bridgerton. I tried watching Bridgerton probably 4 or 5 times over the years. I just never got more than like halfway through the first episode before I just couldn't be bothered. Then suddenly, a few months ago, I tried again, and I absolutely loved it. Watched all 4 seasons, and Queen Charlotte, and honestly, now I am kind of debating rewatching it. Mind you, literally nothing changed. I couldn't tell you why I'm like this, but being told, oh, you should totally watch this, oh, you've gotta read this, you'd love it, is probably the least convincing way to get me interested in something. I just have to get the vibes, I guess. Yeah, so Child stood no chance. It was actually kind of tragic, I'm not gonna lie. With Child defeated, it's time to take on Osile. This will probably be one of the easiest runs of this fight through all of my challenges. A shield to prevent being hit by Osile's attack, pyro to vaporize the enemies. This will be a walk in the park. See, just look how great the shield stands up against Osile's divine, oh, never mind. Well, it's fine. The shield will be enough to hold me until Ganyu's healing starts. I'm sorry. What just happened? Even watching that back in editing, I still have no idea what happened. The worst part of this, though, is the fact it drops you on the dock over here, but you need to go back to the guy to buy the moon in order to start the fight again. And we have to rewatch the entire cutscene. Luckily, I avoided making the same mistake twice. Even if I didn't actually know what the mistake even was, I managed to help fight off Osile and complete Act 3. With the Liyue Archon quest complete, it's time to return to Mondstadt to start the Dainsleif quest. You know, I really miss the collected miscellany and getting to hear Dainsleif's opinions on the playable characters. I would have loved to hear his thoughts on Nicole. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, when Dainsleif appears, so do Abyss mages. A lot of them, actually. In these 2 quests alone, I'm pretty sure there are more pyro-immune enemies than we've seen in the entire challenge up until this point. So, that's super cool. At least the last fight of the first quest is something we can complete easily. With the world quest done, it's time to return to Liyue for we will be reunited. And even more pyro enemies. Also, I've been thinking, as much as I enjoy streaming, I admittedly feel like I will be scaling it back to being a rare occurrence. The longer I make content full-time, the more I've started to get a full grasp on my own abilities with my chronic fatigue and a schedule that works for me and works around my symptoms. Unfortunately, streaming takes a lot more out of me, and I really need to dedicate nearly all of my daily energy allowance to my long-form videos if I want to keep a consistent schedule. I'll probably do 1 or 2 streams for Lowen, one for pulls and building him, one for maybe like Mondstadt for Lowen only, but after that, I don't know. I hope that's okay with you guys, and just in case anyone was wondering, I'm thinking for my Nuzlocke challenge, I might just film it like a normal challenge instead of streaming it so I can still, you know, finish the challenge. Plus, as we all know way too well, my internet is very awful for upload speeds, so streams are typically a struggle fest anyways. After an unfortunate amount of Pyro Abyss mages, we managed to complete We Will Be Reunited, so it's nearly time to head to Inazuma. But I still need to work up to AR 30, which is always a bit of a struggle, and even worse, I ended up using all of my remaining resin to farm her materials, so I had to resort to old-fashioned exploration. And finally, after more time than I'd care to admit, we hit AR 30. So let's start the Inazuma prologue and board the Alcor. This also means fighting pyro slimes. While we were busy wasting time trying to fight fire with fire, literally, our final opponent stole the Masterless Vision. So we take advantage of our ability to fly as an angel, definitely not because Kazuha has an anemo vision or anything, and track down the group of treasure hoarders. This fight always is entertaining to me because it's so short. Like, you could tell me Faye the Flyer has maybe 5 HP, and I'd probably believe you. but it's especially entertaining doing this with a pyro character because the dialogue scene with him just laying in flames and the traveler and Kazuo walking up menacingly, cinematic, truly. With the prologue quest complete, we meet with Sea Drake, not to be confused with Land Drake, and start Inazuma Act 1. So the last 3 heavy recording sessions I've done have been exclusively with Fontaine and Natlan, and wow, it gave me a new perspective on Inazuma. Namely, that even though it's not a huge amount of actual fights, it's still a part of the era of shorter Archon quests. I even found myself thinking, wow, this is such a short quest. Why did I always complain about it? Truly a life lesson that the grass will always seem greener until you spend 2 hours chasing down Auroron or 4 hours running around an underwater prison, or something like that. Speaking of, I finally did Unfinished Comedy and the whole quest chain for that. It was not nearly as awful lengthwise as I expected. I actually really liked it. I've been trying to 100% Fontaine so I can farm wishes for Lowen because I already 100%ed Natlan and Notcry, but oh man, there are so many world quests in Fontaine. I already maxed out my reputation in Fontaine, and I still have a ton of quests that can be done, which is kind of a tragedy. It's like when you max out Battle Pass early. I really wish Genshin would add special bonuses for post-level 50 Battle Pass. With the transportation balloon safe and not smoking, which is a win with our history, it's time to go see Ayaka. If Ayaka wanted to be cool and mysterious, she should have just opened with, "You must solve my problems 3 if the Raiden Shogun you wish to see." That would have been peak. I saw someone tweet that, oh, of course it's difficult to get to Narukami Shrine, it's supposed to be a pilgrimage, and okay, that makes sense. But here's my thing. Why did they insist that a crazy old man needs to embark on a pilgrimage? There must be a secret back entrance that the Shrine Maidens can use, right? Well, anyways, my many pilgrimages across many accounts has at least provided me a streamlined path, so I guess it could be worse. While we break into jail, and on the topic of Yaimiko, I saw some rumors that the characters who are getting buffs will be on a new Chronicle Wish style banner. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, maybe I'll finally get to complete Wriothesley only. I had started that one, but I only got to like Act 3 of Mondstadt before it was lost in the Great Purge of my solo accounts. I'm also starting to actually run out of accounts without an active challenge on it, so I'm thinking when the anniversary rolls around, I'll have to start making more new accounts. At least then I'll get a 10 pull on the accounts, probably. Anyways, back to the buffed characters, maybe I'll also do Sino only. I have a Yaimiko account from the original Inazuma Chronicled Wish, and obviously I have my Mizuki only account that I'm going to be recording part 2 of shortly, so I guess I have a list of possible options. Not doing a solo Chi-Chi run though. Hard pass to that. Who else was in the buffs? Oh, Beidou, right? It was, what, Wriothesley, Yaimiko, Mizuki, Chi-Chi, Beidou. I feel like I'm missing someone. Oh, Diona. I don't know if I'll do 4-star challenges beyond Gaming and probably Aoife. Well, I did promise Toma to Violet and Kaveh for Midia, and I'll probably do Ilua as well. Well, we'll see. With Act 1 completed, it's time for our obligatory story quests. I can't even say anything about this anymore because they started incorporating story quests into the Archon quests in a way that just extends the length of the quest, which I guess is one way to force players to do the story quests. I wish they would bring Hangout Quest back though. I didn't do the original ones as often as I should, but I very much enjoyed the art that came from each ending. Or, you know, Genshin could stop being cowards and give story-relevant 4 stars a proper voice story quest. I'm looking at you, Ilua World Quest. Also, I think it's incredible that Ayaka managed to cause a huge explosion trying to cook, and somehow she dodged the "this character cannot cook" debuff. Makes you think how awful Raiden must be when it comes to cooking. She may be mother, but she's not cooking mama. With Ayaka's story quest complete, it's time to meet up with the original Pyro Yapper.
Question! Doesn't it hurt your voice talking all the time? It can get uncomfortable, I guess. But what else would I be using my voice for?
Hitting Nicole where it hurts, I see. You would think that with Nicole being a pyro character, I'd have no issue with the gardening task, but like I mentioned earlier in the video, her targeting is so odd. I had to constantly remind myself to adjust because her attacks hit further away than most catalysts. Oh, I'm glad you liked me burning down some bushes, a random child. Once we beat up some military officers, we wrap up Yoimiya's story quest, meaning it's time to start Act 2 and fight the Raiden Shogun. Before that though, without fail whenever I start Act 2, I end up just awkwardly sitting in the tea house waiting for the quest to trigger because it's the next day, but it's always just 30 seconds or less, so it's funnier to me to just sit here and wait. I don't know, maybe I've gone crazy from all these solo runs. Now obviously if this was a true speed run, I'd just let A beat me up to trigger the cutscene and move on. And honestly, if it were me, getting beat up by A doesn't necessarily seem like a bad bad option. But Nicole is a prideful angel, and she cannot simply let herself lose here. For her, it would be like a grown adult getting beaten up by an 8-year-old. So I decided to test how long this fight will actually go before it's cut off. I know that after a certain amount of time, the Vision Hunt decree will be triggered, and at that point it's significantly harder to win, but we'll see what happens. On Hexerai only, I had to let 3 out of 4 of my team members be defeated, which stresses me out for the Nuzlocke, but if I can cheese my way through this, I will see an alternate option. Side note, I recently got a comment where someone said they would love it if I did the story recaps like with Arlecchino only, but for Honkai Star Rail. And honestly, that seems like a fun idea. However, I did end up utilizing the skip button a lot for Dan Heng only, which yes, will come out eventually. So I'd have to do a different Star Rail challenge for that, but if enough people are interested in it, I think it would be fun. I was thinking it could be something like Astral Express only, especially with the new Himiko coming out soon. Unfortunately, I didn't think to make an alt and claim Archer, so a future Fate only will likely require sheer luck or money spent, since now only Gilgamesh will be free. So I'd have to see how well Dan Heng only ends up doing to see if it's worthwhile to do occasional Star Rail content. I am absolutely looking forward to Gilgamesh though, even if Clara might not be. Folks, we did it. We managed to technically beat A. Regardless, we still have to pretend we lost, which is fine because it means being rescued by Toma. Can always count on Children of Mondstadt, or Animo characters, which technically counts, to rescue us when the time comes. However, there is no such thing as a free rescuing, or whatever the phrase is, and in exchange for helping us escape, Toma asks us to go find the Resistance, which means we have to go rescue Tepe. Sometimes I'll see tweets or TikToks about NPCs that have died in Genshin, and I see people mourning Tepe, and I start to feel bad for always dunking on him, but it never lasts very long. Maybe if this quest was longer than 20 minutes, I'd actually feel more attachment, but can't help it now. Tepe brings us to meet Goro, which also means it's time for the dreaded archery demonstration. Even though Nicole's attacks land further away than most catalysts, they still can't reach the dummies for the archery demonstration. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, why are we being asked to teach the troops archery? General Goro is literally an archer, even if his form is a bit questionable. But no, let's ask the swordsman. Well anyways, after we dragged Goro to teach his soldiers, we're able to take advantage of the rain to vaporize the enemies, literally, and this time, I thankfully avoided flinging any of them off the side of the cliff. As is typical for these fights of honor, the cutscene takes longer than the actual fight, for each time. Actually, I think Nicole's burst animation takes longer than the first 2 fights. Speaking of that, I saw a tweet saying they want Sandrone's burst to be like the robot's big attack in the Nodcry Archon quest. Can you imagine trying to beat the clock in Stygian or the Abyss, and here comes the massive robot with a 15-second burst animation? I think I'd actually cry. With Act 2 done, I decided to call it a night. After all, we were on day 3 of this challenge, and already nearly done with Inazuma. I figured the progress was good enough.
Day 4.
The bathhouse is where we start the new event? Wow, I sure hope that doesn't interfere with any Archon quest activities later. For now, we meet up with Tepe to start Act 3, so it's time to get to the Sangonomiya Shrine. Well, that doesn't seem scientifically possible, unless the bird is made of lead or something. Actually, is needing to be light enough to fly the reason why birds can float on water? I never actually thought about it. Oh, rip, I guess we'll never know. At the shrine, Kokomi sends us to meet the current upper brass of Swordfish 2, meaning it's time to fight some more enemies. I don't think I've said it yet, but I cannot understate how much I adore Nicole's burst. She's so beautiful. I don't know if it's because the new modeling style for characters adds a gentleness, I guess, to the models, or what it is, but all of the women characters released lately have just been so beautiful. They also literally glow, but we already discussed that, so that's neither here nor there. After a training montage with Tepe, we head to the island of Electro Monuments, and it's honestly a little humbling to ask Lisa for help right now.
Flashback.
Would you look at that? The one who rejected Hexenzirkel, now getting help from a member.
Oh, how the tables have turned.
End of flashback.
Sorry, Lisa. I do think that one nice thing about this is there has yet to be a challenge runner who managed to find a way to do this without an Electro character. Even someone like Java the Cup, who is so allergic to quote-unquote cheating the challenges that he was willing to light the grass on fire to kill Amber to avoid using her at the start of the game, was unable to find a workaround to these monuments. Maybe one day, but who am I kidding? Probably not. Returning to the shrine, we at least see that Genshin fixed whatever caused the floating delusion in earlier patches, though admittedly I forgot about it and didn't notice until editing. I genuinely entered a flow state while recording this challenge and just completely turned my brain off. It was kind of impressive, honestly. Oh, terrible news, besides Tepe dying. If you follow me on Twitter, you might already know, but Hoyoverse unfortunately got me this patch with Miliastra Wonderland, specifically with the new Battle Pass outfit. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was too me-coded to not get. And releasing Animal Ears finally in the same patch? Yep, this was targeted, unfortunately, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Anyways, this is my new mannequin, Kina? This is me as an NPC in Genshin Impact. Good news is I can now pose for photos with Liyue in Dormant Port. Worth every penny. I would love this outfit from the Elite banner, but unfortunately, I am not willing to spend however much it would end up costing to get enough engraved shards. Unless I manage to get Liyue C6R5 in under 500 pulls or something ridiculous. Unrelated, but while editing this, I was reminded that the first time we hear Nicole is during Wanderer's story quest. Did Nicole and Wanderer interact in the Nodcry Archon quest? I haven't played it yet because, well, I only played Natlan for the first time like 2 months ago, so it's kind of on brand. But I feel like if they didn't interact at all, it feels like such a wasted opportunity. If Dottore was able to put it together, Nicole definitely would have too, right? Well, that's neither here nor there because we have to be subjected to fighting more pyro slimes for Yaimiko. I don't really understand how this would possibly train us to take on A, but what do I know? Yep, somehow I saw that coming. Okay, we did one section of dialogue between 2 NPCs to unlock the area, so now it's time to get back to lighting off some fireworks. Now, this video has been an absolute yap fest, but we have finally reached the final 3 battles. Well, the big ones anyways. So what am I going to talk about now? Well, 2 things. First, on the topic of yaps, I used to have a section on my Discord to let people submit yap ideas, but at the time, I wasn't uploading as frequently, so I ended up not utilizing the yaps as much as I'd like to. I also have tried like twice to host Q&As, but the videos never end up doing well because they aren't related to challenges, so YouTube doesn't view them as important to push to my subscribers, but I do like the idea of answering potential questions. And then it hit me. What if I make another gacha? Enter the Wheel of Yap. That was supposed to be heard in the same way as the Wheel of WoW from Webkins. You know, never mind. Anyways, in the description box, there will be a form to submit questions, yap topics, or, I don't know, your embarrassing Genshin confessions, like when I mentioned not knowing about the NRE bag until this challenge. It'll be anonymous, but I will filter through them, so don't send anything weird or about topics I can't talk about as a Hoyo creator. Every so often, maybe once a video, maybe less often, depending on how many topics I get, I'll spin a wheel with numbers to pick from the available Google form submissions. This is obviously experimental, but I thought it would be a fun way to interact, and if it doesn't work, we can pretend it never happened. While we go into the probably very long fight against Signora, my second topic is how I felt about this challenge so far and Nicole overall. Unfortunately, if you're one of the people who watch these challenges to feel less bad about not pulling a character, I fear I might make your FOMO worse. Sorry in advance. As I've mentioned a few times, Nicole is probably one of the most versatile kits released for a 5-star in quite a while. For a time, Genshin was starting to feel like it was going in a direction that required pulling at least 2 limited characters, who usually run together, in order to clear any sort of endgame content. I'm looking at you, Skirk and Escoffier. That ends up alienating the free-to-play players or low spenders, and for a good reason. But Nicole shows us that versatile support characters are not done yet, and I'm definitely hoping Genshin continues in this direction, be it with buffing older and standard characters, or the new kits like Nicole. Nicole has definitely been one of the easiest challenges I've done thus far, and I'm honestly tempted to just speedrun part 2, because it's incredibly enjoyable when I can have a good shield and do more than 5 damage at a time. Dolly up. With Signora defeated, it's time to go take on A again. And yes, just like last time, I out-timed her first phase. The good news with the second phase, though, is I finally remembered to wait until she pulled the sword out before I used my burst. It's a small thing, but the sheer number of bursts that I have wasted in this section of the fight is incredibly humbling. With the Fish and Hunt decree repealed, we officially complete the Inazuma Archon quest, so now it's time to head to the Chasm. Unfortunately, while the first half of this quest is easy enough to deal with, I know all too well what's coming for me. Something I never mention in this section of my challenges is that somehow I always end up recording the Chasm quest during the same time of day, when the sun is at the perfect angle to make seeing on my main monitor virtually impossible. I ended up getting into the habit of watching the recording through OBS because that monitor has a better angle that I can actually see with. Honestly, I'm more surprised that it took me this many challenge runs before I finally fell and needed to backtrack while trying to move within the Chasm. After a handful of easy fights, it's time for the worst part of the Catalyst challenges. Actually, this is probably the second worst part of any solo challenges period. For the record, number 1 goes to the Dane quest in Natlan. I don't even have anything to yap about anymore. This single section has 3 Pyro Abyss mages, and it took me longer than probably any of the previous Archon quests. At least it felt like it did. However, persistence is key, and along with some help from Heizo to break the power sources, we finally complete the Chasm quest, marking the end of part 1 of this challenge. Thankfully, with my current workflow and scheduling, I don't see it being very long before part 2. Maybe I'll wait until she reruns for maximum algorithm boosting, who knows. Honestly, that would actually make a really good content schedule. Well, anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and if there are any characters you'd like to see me do a solo run with next, or if there's a specific character you really want me to prioritize for part 2, make sure to let me know in the comments. If you made it to the end of this video, comment an angel emoji, or I don't know, the Halo smiley face, whatever angel style emoji you have in your keyboard. As always, thank you so much to my channel members for their continued support, as well as my Twitch subscribers. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time.